Well, coming up next, a special look at science fiction. For millions, it's fantasy, it's the future, and it's just plain fun.
It really is. You know, yesterday's science fiction is our fact now.
Exploring the unknown reaches of science fiction. Is it just another trend to pack the theaters and sell Japanese robots at Christmas? Tonight, Jim Schuler embarks on a series to help us navigate through the latest fascination with science fiction.
From the 30s to the 80s, from Buck Rogers blasters to the deserts of Dune, generations of Americans have been starstruck. And today, many of them are not so surprised to be living in the kind of world they were reading about just years ago. Science fiction authors visualized a world of equality for women long before it became a reality. And now that field that once was just for man's imagination is open to women readers and writers as well. Science fiction isn't just for Luke Skywalker anymore.
The new surge of science fiction fandom was first sighted in the 70s. Films like Close Encounters and Star Wars were drawing new moviegoers to the theaters like alien tractor beams. The black and white days of Buck Rogers animation were blasted to the past. The new special effects made science fiction cinema real to a new generation of Skywalkers. Because back on Earth, even in the 80s, seeing is still believing. The new fans became science fiction dependent with an appetite like Jabba the Hutt. Their scanners searched for new films but found too few to satisfy. Then the fans did a most unusual thing. They turned to books. And that's when they found that reading was believing, too.
I love the books. I guess it's an escape from school and everyday life. I just really get into the books. I'll read for days. It's the future. It really is. You know, yesterday's science fiction is our fact now.
And the facts say women have now joined the ranks of the Starstruck. As readers, women are leaving the romance writings for the fantasy of the final frontiers and attending the science fiction conventions where few women have gone before.
They make no bones about it. There are going to be female characters that have important roles in it, and heroic roles, too. Instead of the sword and sorcery with the huge, muscled beast like Conan running around, you've got just what appear to be everyday regular women thrust into the fantasy situation just like the men used to be.
Science fiction has always treated women as equals.
It's escapism, I suppose. It's you can go to other worlds, other planets, be anybody you want to be. Luke Skywalker, anybody.
But not all science fantasy comes from Hollywood. Some of it comes from the mountains of North Georgia.
Dear Carmi, well, you were right. Go ahead. Say I told you so and get it over with. Join the Interstellar Nurses Corps and see the galaxy. Oh, Carmi, why didn't I listen to you? I've been on Taurus 14 for 10 days now. There's absolutely nothing to do except work.
As science fiction fans watch the evolving equation, more women readers equals more women characters, they have not overlooked the emerging woman writer, like Sharon Webb, who dreams up popular science fiction and fantasy in her Blairsville, Georgia hideaway.
Women are finding a certain amount of romance in science fiction and in fantasy that they didn't really know was there, and perhaps has been there all along. After all, the romance of a quest, the romance of going into space or looking into the future, that gives you your own special little time machine to travel in.
Sharon's childhood time machines were The Wizard of Oz and Alice in Wonderland. And when she couldn't find magic rabbit holes in her own backyard, she began inventing them. At first, she had to use a man's pen name to sell her books. But when she changed to science fiction, that changed too.
In this field, there is less chauvinism than in any other field of writing. There is more understanding of the human condition, I think, in the field of science fiction than any other form of writing.
And that openness is one of the things that draws new readers to science fiction. Readers from a fascinating cross-section of society that would surprise you.
Well, what are we going to have tomorrow night?
Tomorrow night at 6, we're going to go to one of their conventions. And don't be surprised if you see someone that you may know coming out of the capsule.
Okay. Thank you.
That's interesting enough as it is,
Science
right
fiction
there.
fan. Jim talked to a lot of atypical people at a recent convention, and tonight Jim takes us behind the scenes of the Chattacon 10 in Tennessee.
Right, Chattacon 10. If you ask any science fiction fans how they feel about the kind of news coverage they get, they'll tell you television usually shows them in silly costumes having fun, and never as ordinary people contemplating the extraordinary mysteries of the universe. So when Action News went to Chattacon, that's the annual science fiction convention in Chattanooga, we made sure to look not only at who's behind the costumes, but what's behind the writing. What is science fiction good for? We found a lot of people from Atlanta behind the masks and a lot of sense behind all the nonsense.
I'm an empress of which world?
I am a well-keepress.
Wanda from Albanor.
Admiral James T. Kirk of the Starship Enterprise.
The Priestess Mullane.
I'm myself. This is me, okay?
Actually, all these people in alien cloaks are just being themselves. A costume contest at a science fiction convention may look like a parade of stark star crazies, but it's more like a Martian Mardi Gras, phasers set on stun. Beneath the beard of every wizard or the body armor of every star trooper, there beats the heart of a humanoid.
This is a place where you can get weird if you want to and nobody thinks anything of it.
Perhaps that is the reason that science fiction has become as popular as it is people are tired of being stamped out of a mold. They're looking for something different. They're looking clean out of this universe for it.
What the hell is going on around here? Who the hell are you people?
I'm a cardiologist in Marietta.
I'm a registered nurse.
I'm a systems programmer for Continental Telecom.
I design swords and knives.
I work in an auto salvage yard and sell used car parts.
I'm Robert Jordan, and I write Conan the Barbarian.
They all have one thing in common, and that is that they read. Only 2% of the population of this country read. By that I mean read at least a book a year. And that's rather frightening.
Science fiction writers find that fact of the present more frightening than any fiction of the future. And that's one of the reasons writers go to the conventions, to attract new readers.
I guess it's a general accepted way in the science fiction community that they're not in their ivory castle. The writers expect to get the feedback from their fans on how they're doing.
You have different people coming for different reasons. There's going to be a segment of people who disappear into that game room and are not seen again for the rest of the convention. There's going to be a small group of people who are following around their favorite author or artist. Then there's going to be a hell of a lot of people that are just interested in the parties. They're there to see the rest of the fans.
Trick or treat!
No wonder they called it in the Dark Ages, you know?
Right.
But the most important benefit of science fiction is that it's a cushion against future shock. Science fiction fans don't fear the future. They believe in it.
Although there are stories of doom and gloom, science fiction talks about the possibility of a future. And that's more than a lot of people today can really see. Science fiction sees a future, and it sees problems there, but it gives us time to cope with them.
Georgia's science fiction fans are always climbing toward the leading edge of those new ideas. What does that future hold for Atlanta? In 1986, the World Science Fiction Convention will fill the new Marriott Hotel to overflowing when 10,000 readers from around the science fiction world gather here to celebrate.
It's the future. It's what's coming up, what will be, a glimpse of tomorrow through today. Yeah.
Is the present not good enough?
No, not really. You know, but the future's bound to be better.
Now, in the story, I talked about the World Science Fiction Convention coming to Atlanta in 1986. But Georgia science fiction fans don't have to wait that long. Atlanta will soon be home for a new convention, the Phoenix Con. It's starting up in March. And, of course, there's the Atlanta Fantasy Fair in August.